Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Dan here with you, as always, for every episode of the Man Cave Podcast. And we're going to talk some Packers coming up after their victory over Seattle on Sunday night. Justus Cleveland is going to join me here as well. We're going to talk some Brewers and Packers with him too. But you know the drill. We're going to lead off this episode of the podcast talking a little Packers after their victory over the Seattle Seahawks last night. And I think we have to start off with the defense. I want to start off with the defense because, well, all week it sure looked like Jaire Alexander was going to play. I mean, he's listed as a full participant in practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Sure seemed like it was trending in that direction that Jaire was going to suit up and play. And then Friday comes, and he's not at practice. He's not practicing. And Matt LaFleur, after practice, says just didn't look right, didn't look like he was ready, so they shut him down on Friday and already declared him out for the game, for yesterday's game. So all week last week, everybody been talking about, man, it's going to be good to get Jaire back for this game because you got DK Metcalf, you've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, you got Tyler Lockett. You know, Seattle likes to throw it over the top of you. Now we're going to get Jaire back, so you're feeling a little confident. And then you find out Jaire's not coming back. You're like, poop. But probably a word that was a little bit more, inappropriate for this. So it's like, okay. What does Green Bay got to do? What does Jeff Hafley? What does the defense got to do now? Well, you got to get after Geno Smith. You got to get after the quarterback quick. Not just get after him, but you got to get after him quick, right? You don't want to let those big plays develop downfield. You don't want to let DK get behind the secondary, behind the course, because you knew that Green Bay was going to play probably a little bit more zone, try to keep everything in front of them. But to really help out that secondary, to really help out Carrington, Stokes, Keyshawn, and that, you want to get your pass rushers, you want to get your defensive front to get after Geno Smith quick. And Edgerrin Cooper coming back made a huge difference, but a credit to the whole front. Kenny Clark was making some plays. Devontae Wyatt was making some plays. Rashawn Gary was making some plays. Barre, I mean, the list goes on. So a credit to that defensive front and a credit to Jeff Hafley for being aggressive in that approach. But then, on top of it, when Geno Smith goes out, you got a backup quarterback coming in here. They don't let up. They don't get a little cute. They even get a little bit more aggressive in getting after Sam Howell, the backup quarterback. So, defensively, I want to tip my cap to Jeff Hafley, and I want to tip my cap to a lot of those players up there, especially Edgerrin Cooper. Edgerrin Cooper coming back. Leads the team in tackles, 7 total tackles, 6 were solo, picks up a sack, a couple TFLs, tackle for losses, couple passes defensed, couple quarterback hits, and the pick. The rookie linebacker out there, I thought showcased what this guy can do for hopefully years to come. Kind of like a Swiss Army knife. I know that we use that phrase a lot. A lot of people use that phrase a lot when it comes to certain players, like we talk about it with Jaden Reed and such. But, I mean, this is a linebacker that he displayed his speed and he showcased that you can bring him as a blitzer. To me, I think he's one of their more pure tackling linebackers. He's an aggressive linebacker. You saw him drop down or drop back in the coverage and such. I know it might be a little overreaction from one game, but we saw glimpses of it all season long. And last night, it was on display what type of player Edgerrin Cooper, I think, can be, or the player that the Packers envision Edgerrin Cooper being for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, hats off to Edgerrin Cooper for having a fantastic game last night. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. Inagbare Kiki, as they like to call him, I mean, the one drive was all him, 2 sacks and a TFL. He ends up finishing with 2 sacks, 3 tackles for losses, and a couple quarterback hits over there as well. So, I mean, it was you got to give credit. I mean, Brenton Cox Jr. picking up a sack, Rashawn Gary picking up a sack, Devontae Wyatt exploding with a nice spin move. You know what I'm talking about, right? That sweet spin move that he had to pick up a sack as well. So, credit to those guys. Credit to the boys for getting after both the quarterbacks last night. I thought it was a job well done. 7 total sacks. 3 of them were on Geno Smith. 4 were on Sam Howell. So defensively, job well done. A job well done. Just that one touchdown in the 4th after Seattle got a short field after the Josh Jacobs fumble. But kept him out of the end zone. You had Carrington Valentine's interception in the end zone too. Young guy getting his first career interception. Probably a little excited. Now we'll probably be like, okay, probably might want to kneel it down there instead of taking it out. But, you know, the enthusiasm and the adrenaline probably pumping through the veins there a little bit. Offensively, the Packers, I mean, you couldn't start off the game in that first quarter any better. You take the opening kick and you march it down and you take a bunch of time off the clock and you get a touchdown. Follow it up with another touchdown in your second drive and you're all of a sudden you're up 14-0. Jordan Love was in a little bit of a groove. They were really hammering Josh Jacobs, really employing Jaden Reed in the game plan too, as opposed to the game against the Lions where Jaden Reed was pretty quiet. And the game plan around it was pretty quiet. But you could tell they really tried to make it a focus, whether it was in the running or the passing game. But Josh Jacobs getting things started, running the ball hard. He ends up finishing with 94 yards on the ground on 26 carries. Overall, the Packers, 34 carries compared to 27 passing attempts. That offense in the first quarter, I love that mentality that Packers offense was playing with. I love that mentality of running the ball down your throat, making you try to stop it, making defenses adjust to what you want to do. Playing with, the cards in your head, just announcing your presence with order, however you want to describe, but making the defense adjust to you, not adjusting to what the defense is doing, making the defense adjusting to you. And they did a fantastic job in the beginning there in the first half, running the football, taking some shots. I mean, Christian Watson with a great catch. Romeo Doubs, of course, with the last touchdown there. I don't know how that guy caught that ball, but even the Christian Watson one on the sideline where he stayed in bounds a little bit earlier in the game. I mean, receivers were having some nice catches last night there too. So offensively, started off really well. Started off really good. Jordan Love distributing the ball. I mean, he had Watson with a couple catches for 56. Josh Jacobs, 4 catches for 42. Romeo Doubs, 3 catches for 40, including 2 tuds. Tucker Kraft with a couple catches. Jaden Reed with a few catches. Dontayvion Wicks with a couple catches as well. I mean, but in the early parts, those receivers were asked to get their blocking gloves on, right? No blocking, no rock. But it wasn't perfect, right? I mean, if we're going to be our coach speak here, it wasn't necessarily the most perfect offensive output from quarters 1 through 4. I mean, there were still a couple things, like especially, and Matt LaFleur after the game took complete blame. I mean, I think a lot of us were probably scratching our head before the end of the first half and like, that clock's ticking. It's like, why is there no urgency? Why are we not hurrying up? Why are we not trying to move the ball down quicker? And they snapped it finally with 10 seconds after all that time clicked off, and they were able to get a pass interference. Ball down at the 4, but just 4 seconds left. Kind of thought maybe Green Bay would still be able to get a quick throw, like a fade or a slant or something like that to get in there, but Green Bay elected to go with the points and go with the field goal there. But Matt LaFleur took complete blame for the lack of some solid clock management, if you will, after the game, just wasting all that time down there. So I was like, what the? Oh, okay. Kind of weird there, a little bit, right? And Matt LaFleur took complete blame for that. But in the fourth quarter too, whether it was just a little bit of sloppy play, execution wise or whatever, but you kind of just felt like fourth quarter of the game, fourth quarter of the game up until that last touchdown where, Seattle, give them credit too, playing some better defense, forcing a couple quick 3-and-outs, but maybe a little bit of a sloppy play from the Packers offense and such, maybe getting a little too cute, little lackadaisical there, but it was like, don't let them creep back into this, especially with a backup quarterback. And then when it got to like 23-13 after that turnover and that touchdown, it's like, okay, come on now. Let's get back to our bread and butter. Let's get back to what we were doing. Let's get that mentality back, ground and pound, and let's make some good decisions and make some good throws and get some positive yardages on those running plays. So it felt like in the second half a little bit wasn't there like it was to begin the game, but at least they closed it out with that touchdown at the end and ultimately picking up the W on the road there. So, again, Jordan Love, credit to the offensive line. He wasn't sacked at all last night. Yeah, had a couple of was rushed a few times, no question. Guys were getting there, a total of 6 quarterback hits, but Jordan Love getting the ball out. Not taking any of those sacks and such. So credit to the offensive line play. You want to talk about consistency with the offensive line. I think it kind of gets underrated or not noticed as much. But if you notice in the game last night, watching it, that little graphic on the bottom when you were talking about the offensive line for the Packers, 2 starting combos this year, 2 different starting offensive line combinations this year. That's one of the lowest behind Buffalo and Baltimore. I mean, you want to talk about continuity and consistency. You look at that offensive line, and when you can get that, and when your guys up front, your top guys up front can stay healthy, and you're not trying to move guys left and right, and you're trying to keep guys in the same positions and have that continuity and have that consistency over there. It's a huge bonus from that offensive line, and we're seeing some really solid offensive line play. And I think it's being underrated and not maybe getting a ton of the credit that it deserves so far this year. So overall, was it a 100% perfect game? No, it wasn't a 100% perfect game. There's some stuff out there to clean up, no question about it. You look at some of the offense, you look at maybe some of the decisions making. I know there were some maybe thinking, especially what was it, one of the field goal attempts when it was like down on the 4 or something like that, 5 or whatever, and it was like 4th and 1 or something, and they elected to go for the field goal. A lot of people, and honestly, it crossed my mind too. It's like, okay, you got a backup quarterback in. You want to be a little aggressive, try to get the touchdown there, and if you don't, you're at least pinning that backup quarterback, close to their end zone and putting a little bit more pressure on him. Packers elected to go for the field goal to go up 3 possessions, 3 scores at that point. But there was like, okay, would you want to see a little bit more aggressive? Maybe they played a little bit safe at certain points in time. And it could be a little bit of a debate, could be a little bit of an argument and such over there. But overall, you pick up the win, you go to the West Coast, you go to a place like Seattle, you get that W, and you don't apologize for how you get those W's. But tip of the cap, if we're handing out, like game balls or tip of the caps, I mean, I go to Jeff Hafley. I thought he called a fantastic game defensively last night. Did exactly what the defense had to do. Edgerrin Cooper coming back and just having the game that he did last night was just fantastic. Again, I think Edgerrin Cooper is a guy that we saw a glimpse that you can use him in different situations, whether it's blitzing, whether if he's got to drop back in a little zone coverage, I thought he did a fantastic job of baiting Sam Howell a couple times last night. One should have been a pick. The other was a pick. To me, I think he's probably their most purest linebacker in terms of tackling the ball carrier and such. So Edgerrin Cooper had a game. Romeo Doubs, obviously with the 2 touchdowns. I mean, even his first one, his touchdowns weren't easy either. I mean, that first one, powering through, a little slant pass. They're not able to take him down. Powerful wide receiver, getting in there, getting in the end zone, and then, of course, that final touchdown at the end there. Barely fingertips clearing it off the edge there. So, tip of the cap, and then Dobbs, Jacobs. I mean, he ran hard. Even give Seattle credit. They kind of buckled down in their run defense. Some hard fought yards there. Not a ton in the second half compared to the first half. Obviously, the turnover there, you don't want to see that happen. But no, if I had to pick a player of the game, I'm going Edgerrin Cooper. It was that guy. That guy was a lot of fun to watch last night, and I hope he continues to just stack that success and continue to get better and continue, because I think he can be a lights-out player, a very unique linebacker that you can put him in different positions to, quote the late, great Kevin Green, to affect games. You can bring him on blitzes. You can do different things with him. So I'm excited to see the career path of 56. It's good to see him healthy. And we've talked a lot about, Jair being such a pivotal player within this defense for what Jeff Hafley wants to do. Maybe play a little bit more aggressive coverage, play a little bit of aggressive, man-to-man coverage. But I think Edgerrin Cooper also showcased last night, too, that he can be a pretty important part of this defense. I mean, it's gone in different ways. Earlier in the season, we were talking about Devin Williams, the rookie safety, and how much of an impact he has made on the back end with Xavier McKinney back there. And then it's Jair, but Edgerrin Cooper, the rookie, he's making a case, too, why he is a very, very important part to this Packers defense, to the success of this Packers defense. Quick break, and we're going to bring in Justus Cleveland. We're going to talk some more Packers with him, plus a little Brewers. That's coming up after these quick words. Family owned and operated, Toyson Ford is proud to serve the drivers of the Chippewa Valley with some of the most popular vehicles around Wisconsin and the country. They're committed to giving drivers from across the area the best in customer service with a top-notch selection of brand new vehicles to choose from, as well as an extensive inventory of pre-owned crossover, SUV, and trucks. Plus, with their expert finance, service, and parts centers in-house, they strive to be your one-stop dealership for all of your automotive needs. Visit them today at 1000 Chippewa Crossing Boulevard in Chippewa Falls. Going back to Friday, the Devin Williams trade with the Brewers. I don't think it surprised a lot of people because it kept out there, and I think, it was like, okay, similar to Corbin Burns' final year, maybe looking at moving on from him. Maybe a little bit sooner than what was kind of thought, because I think it was kind of like, okay, maybe it would happen in January or closer to spring training like Corbin Burns was last year. But Friday, a little bit of Friday news dump. He gets sent to the Yankees for a starting pitcher. Cortez, and then infielder Durbin, who apparently Pat Murphy is very high on from watching him for 2 years in the Northwoods League at the Fond du Lac Dock Spiders.
See?
There, so
come on. Way to go Northwoods League. I like that.
Yep. And some cash in return. So, I mean, were you that surprised that it happened?
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
It was one of those when they were dealing with the contract situation earlier in the fall. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay. They're kind of just setting it up. They weren't going to sign him long term.
Right.
The Brewers aren't going to lock up that much money in a closer at this point. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a surprise. I mean, again, some great pitching for the Brewers done by Devin Williams, and I don't want to discount anything like that, but they kind of just went through the same thing a couple of years ago, getting rid of Josh Hader, because that's basically what it ended up being instead of. Mm-hmm. But this, I feel like they got a little more tangible, return here for Devin Williams than they did for Hader, and you're doing it not in the midst when you're in first place. Mm-hmm. You're doing it in the offseason. So, yeah, great memories, great guy to have on the team. But I think with the way McGill pitched last year, when he was closing, it's like, okay, we can probably survive without Devin Williams. And again, the stuff he has when he's on is electric. But there's also the stuff, guy who in the bright lights at times got rattled.
The last image we have of Devin Williams as a Brewer, right?
Yep.
Is that postseason game.
Yeah, and you go back to him punching the wall.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And missing
Yep.
I mean, there's just some stuff that it's like you look at it and you're like, you hope that he can handle. Like, New York's going to be, it's a whole different world when you're in that New York media where every game is examined like it's a playoff game.
Right.
There aren't a lot of throwaway games for the Yankees with that media market that they're in. He's going to be under the spotlight the whole time. And if he doesn't deliver right away, that vice will close with the media there.
How much do you think it factored into last year, too? I mean, remember, Devin Williams missed the first half of the season, and the Brewers were in, they were in first place and winning a bunch of games. Trevor McGill was in there, Do you think that factored into it a little bit, that they were like, okay, we feel maybe more comfortable about moving on from him this year?
Yeah, if they had struggled and were going through different guys trying to find a replacement for Williams, I think that would have been a different factor here. But the fact that McGill came in and pitched at really was great as a closer there. And you had two closers basically at one point of the team. So I think they felt like, okay, we can do this. And they've been really, really good at developing those late relievers. And you have guys they already have on the roster that could do that job if needed, just because of the amount of guys they have that can just throw with speed. Now, granted, you're not going to find the movement that Williams has pretty much anywhere. Yeah, the airbender is, I mean, but you can survive, I think, with somebody else other than him. But it's always tough when you know that a world-class talent is probably not due to be with your team for much longer, and that's kind of how it felt with Williams. So, yeah, not a surprise at all.
Yeah, we don't like to see our favorite teams trade off their best players. Nobody likes that. Right. I don't care what sport it is or what league or anything like that. It's just it's different in baseball, especially when it comes to a team like the Brewers.
And, the economics of being that small market team.
Right.
That's kind of what you've come to expect. You'll get you'll get a few guys that are signed for those long-term contracts. Your Christian Yelich.
Right.
And then, but it seems like it's mostly position players, especially for the Brewers, because you can get such a return for pitching, I feel like. Now, closing, you're not going to get as much as a starting pitcher, and those trades have worked out. The guys at the Brewers have been, so other than the Josh Hader. The Josh Hader one's the one that just kind of floats out there. But
yes. Yep.
We'll pretend that one didn't happen. But no, I think Arnold's done such a good job getting some young talent too, and they need it. With Adames gone, you're going to be shuffling your infield more than likely, and you have a guy that can maybe step in day one and start playing for you.
Yeah, you got Cortez, you got a starting pitcher coming in, and I know he's going to be a free agent after this year too, but I feel like, and that's to fill in for this year, but I also feel like, Durbin might be the big piece in this where they vision him, and they got wasn't just like, it sounds like it was a few $1 million they got in cash coming back too.
Well, you kind of just touched on it. I mean, with the Brewers, the more pressing need is starting pitching. You have enough guys, I think, that in the back into that bullpen that can get the job done as a closer. Whereas starting pitching, the depth there is very thin going into this season.
Yep.
So I think you get that, and even if it's for a year, well, you're only going to have Devin Williams more than likely for another year too.
Right.
And with the starting pitcher, it's easier to move if say the season just doesn't go the way you want it. You have that chip of a starting pitcher that you can probably get some more stuff in return for future seasons. It's if you got to think almost three-dimensional chess when you're a GM. It's like, okay, well, if that doesn't work, we have another piece that we can continue to build,
and probably gives them a little bit more just insurance in case Brandon Woodruff doesn't come back to form.
Right, and that's that's the big X factor in this. Is like if Woodruff comes back and looks like he did before, then you've got top three there, and you've the young guys that developed this last year too. Then you have a solid 5-man rotation that's ready to go.
Right,
but then if Woodruff's that question mark, then you're kind of trying to fill in that role. So I think it gives you a little more depth, especially going into spring training.
Yeah, and I know Robert Gasser's probably not pitching it all day. I mean, they said maybe by September, but at that point he might just be minor league after that. So it kind of fills in for the loss of Robert Gasser this year too. The limited time we saw him last year, but a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, we saw a lot of good stuff from those young pitchers, but with health and just that was the problem. The amazing thing with the Brewers last year is the guys they were able to bring up and immediately have success with.
Right.
So I think, you just keep that depth going and you'll be in a good place.
Absolutely. I agree. So, it stinks to see. I mean, no more Willie, which we knew. Devin, we knew at some point it was going to happen in that. So, but, get this at some point, you got to trust the manager or the general manager of the year, right?
Right.
Matt Arnold, knowing kind of what he's doing here a little bit.
It's been working. I mean, it works until it doesn't.
Right.
Then when it doesn't, it looks bad because you're a small market and usually it collapses real quick in but thankfully the Brewers really have only had one season like that in the last 15 years that they really haven't been in contention. The year that Renicky was fired, they struggled, and then the year after I think they went like 500 or something like that with Cal. But then I mean they've been there. They've been there, and that you got to give a lot of credit to that Brewers front office staff from Stearns now to Arnold of just being able to replenish and be competitive.
Right. I do wonder, with the Caleb Durbin coming over here, and Pat Murphy said it, he's a guy that fits what we're doing or what we did last year, and I think he's kind of talking about maybe more the offensive side.
Yeah.
Because he's not a power guy.
What's his height?
He's like 5'11",
exactly.
5'6".
Yeah, there we go. He's like, I just remember when that Brewers spring training game I was at last year that everybody starting was like 22 years old and under like 6 feet tall.
Oh yeah, he's 5'6". So.
Yeah, they have a type that they're looking for right now, and it's just these guys that can just play all around good are contact hitters.
Yep.
Which I love the fact that that's come back into baseball. That you can, especially with the stealing being up and just being able to do a little more hit and run and that kind of stuff. It's fun to see those scrappy guys coming on those rosters.
It's funny you say because this is a guy too that steals a lot of base. I'm looking at his minor league stuff. 2024 he stole a total of 31 bases. 2023 he stole a total of 36 bases. Yeah. So I mean, he's another guy that again he's the most home runs he's hit in a season was actually this past year, 10 over there in how many at bats? 406 plate appearances, 335 at bats. So again, not a power guy. That doesn't mean that they're not going to try to find another power guy to fill in the void by Willie Adames. But, it fits that Bryce Terang, Joey Ortiz, Sal Frelick, type of mold.
Just, gritty. Even Jackson Churio. I mean, he can hit with some power, but, I mean, he's a guy who can slap the ball to all sides of the field. So, it's really – I don't know. I mean, I'm excited just talking about, like, this type of baseball that, they've brought, Pat Murphy has brought to the Brewers after, a lot of times of it being so analytical at times, it just seemed stale. You were just waiting for the big home run. Now, granted, that doesn't mean the offense doesn't go in the lulls, and we saw that again at times last year, but they'll find somebody. They're going to have to find a little more power just to throw in there, but I like what they have coming back. And, if Christian Yelich comes back and that back is in a good place, that'll help the Brewers as well.
Because, I mean, you look at it, yes, you mentioned Yelich, you got Contreras, hopefully Hoskins can get a little bit, that average up a little bit more, you know, sort of thing. But he was coming back from an ACL. We'll see if that factored into it, too. So it's another interesting, intriguing mixture. Yeah,
and they'll find somebody like a Gary Sanchez that they had last year that can come in and add a little pop when needed. I was totally, he's gone now. But the Sanchez thing originally, I'm like, oh, I don't like this move at all. But he came in and actually did a great job for them and got himself rewarded by doing such a good job for the Brewers. So, if you can bring another one of those guys to come in and just reshore up that lineup with some power, it's going to look good for the Brewers this year.
And I'll be curious, too, with Garrett Mitchell because, he missed a lot of time with that injury, but then towards the end, he started to show that power a little bit more, too.
That's the guy, if you can see him turn that corner, and he has superstar written around him. And I mean, I think Jackson Churio is the superstar of this team, especially after this last year. But I think Garrett Mitchell, if he can just stay on the field, I mean, fans love him.
Yep.
They have for a few seasons here. If he can just get to that level, I mean, sky's the limit, I think, for him, too.
Yeah. I mean, I know he doesn't want to be this position at every single day, but I mean, when if Mitchell's there, you got a Gold Glove winner now in right field. You got Jackson Churio, who seems like he's better suited in left field.
Yeah.
Yelly, I mean, maybe more DH this year, even though he may not like that. But
if with a back issue,
yeah,
you don't. I mean, if it's 100% healed and he feels great, yeah, have him out there. But if it's just going to be him swinging the bat, you need his bat out there more than you need his glove at this point because you have plenty of guys who can play out there.
Exactly. Now. Yep. Packers. Obviously, that's the big topic for a lot of people on a Victory Monday.
Of course.
Especially when it was a primetime late-night game last night on NBC over there, WEAU. So we had quite a few people saying this was the most complete game that they have seen and such. Maybe so. I think there was still maybe – Matt LaFleur talked about it after the game. There was still like a couple, and maybe some questionable clock management decisions at that point. So, but defensively, I look at this game – I mean, I think if you ask anybody after Thursday and you're like, okay, Jair practice full for a second day in a row, you're like, okay, that guy's playing.
Right.
And then to come to find out, nope, he's not. And you're going up against DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Tyler Lockett, like, oh, crap. Are they just going to throw it all over? I give credit to Jeff Hafley and the defensive game plan in that front. They got after Geno Smith early. And then when Sam Howell comes in a backup quarterback, felt like they got even more aggressive getting after him. I tip my cap to Edgerrin Cooper and Jeff Hafley for the performance from last night.
Yeah, I think definitely the defense. That was probably maybe defensively maybe the most complete game they've played. I think offense, there's a couple things that you want to clean up. The fumble, which again, if you're running the guy 27 times a game, it might happen twice a year like it has. But yeah, I think on defense, I mean, I was more than impressed, and especially when Howell came in, they just smothered him. Yeah, like they didn't give him a chance to get comfortable out there. They came in and was it 7 sacks you end up with in the end of the? I mean, that's what when Hafley came into the mix and was added as a coach, you wanted to see more pressure, and it's kind of been hit or miss this year. But to me, that's what that team's capable of. And it wasn't Edgerrin had a great game, but there were other guys, and there's a lot of guys that are developing now.
7 sacks, 6 of them from different players.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to have that happen, that tells you that this team is bought so much into this philosophy, and that everybody from the ground up it's starting to figure it out. So I think this is. Hopefully it's something that they can take. I mean, obviously you got another – New Orleans is going to be a tough game, I think. I think it really is. You don't know what – and who knows what kind of weather we're going to have next Monday. But, yeah, I think going the rest of the season, if this defense keeps playing like this, and the offense with the controlling of the ball –
It's complementary football to a T, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. Yeah.
And I pose this, like and there's been games of this over the years, but it just feels like LaFleur and Hafley, they know what they want to do. Like they're working together. They know exactly what the game plan is going to be. Offensively, we're going to run the football. We're going to take a lot of time off that clock. We're going to punch it in, with the touchdown, helping out the defense, in that part too, especially with the banged up secondary.
Right.
At that point, it just feels like Hafley and LaFleur are in sync right now.
And I think there's probably a lot of, there's probably fans out there who would love to see them just open it up more wide open with the passing game and pass, which they could do if they had to. But they don't have to. Right. And the fact that you're less prone to make mistakes when you're running the ball and you're running it successfully in some of the holes that they were created, especially in the first half. Yeah. I love it's something we have not seen in Green Bay in a long time is where that running game it's run first. Right. And it takes so much pressure off of Jordan Love.
And I feel like that's going to be a benefit when they go on the road in the playoffs. Is if you can be that running team,
take the crowd out of it.
Exactly.
Collinsworth, I think, said it. He's like, nothing takes a crowd out of a game better than like a good running game. Yep. Like a first down run just slows that, the crowd just quiets real quick. And the fact that they were doing that so much in the first half, never even let the 12th man get into the game.
Hell, I was hearing "Go Pack, Go" chants more times.
The whole game.
Yeah,
you really were, and that had to be a stun for a Seattle, fan base that is, prides themselves on being the loudest in the league. So I think if you can keep going with the way they are going with the running game, and then you'll gash them big every once in a while. I mean, Christian Watson's got the Tecmo Bowl, like average per reception there right now. It's you got Reed back involved in the offense. He was targeted. He was 6. I think Romeo was 6, and so was Watson. So you have your top 3 guys.
You throw in Tucker Kraft in there who can go off on a day. So.
And I would say that was the only thing that Seattle really shut down on them was the tight ends just 1 catch I think the whole game. But that's okay because you have so many different weapons. It doesn't have to be the same thing. And that's, going to it now is LaFleur 66 and 33 or something like that in his career, or 31.
Yeah.
The ability for him to continue to evolve that offense, that they do not stick completely with one thing. They find ways to add little wrinkles. That's the key. And I think that's what, you go back to Mike McCarthy, and again, Super Bowl winning coach. But at the end, it seemed like the offense kind of stopped evolving. And I don't know if that's all McCarthy. Some of that might have been the fact that Aaron Rodgers had a lot of say in that offense too, and he wanted to pass. I think Love just seems like he's content with whatever the game plan is. The game plan's him handing the ball off 27 times. He's got no problem with that.
Right. It's like he's dictating what he's making the defense adapt to him.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of like, okay, we got to change this and all that. I loved his honesty when he was asked right before halftime, what's working at offense? Everything. Everything's working right now. It was.
Yeah. What was it in the third quarter? There's one play that just stuck out in my head, and it was like a first down play. It was a fake run to Jacobs where they just did the gash play. It was a timing route.
Yep.
And it was so perfect. It was like as soon as they faked the handoff to Jacobs, he hit his receiver.
It was to Wicks. I think I know what play you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, for a first down. But it was just like that's how in tune this offense is. They still, you're still missing plays, and there's like you said, there's some things they still need to clean up. But
right.
I think this team's built for the playoffs. As long as I think Jacobs is a key.
Yes.
I don't know he's the offensive MVP. He's the glue right now on that offense. So that's where with it being a running back, you're always nervous when he takes that big hit.
Right.
But he usually pops right back up. So
reminds me of Mighty Mouse. I don't know if that's been a nickname for him or anything like that. But he's not the tallest guy in the world.
No,
and
the shiftiness and the way he hits the hole. That's what I like. I'll go back to Aaron Jones with the same thing. Like, the guy could hit a hole. He didn't shy away from contact. It was always like, I'm going to hit this last hit, even if it only gets me another yard. I'm going to hit that hole as hard as I can. But Jacobs is just, from where Jones was, and again, not discounting, he's having a great season in Minnesota as well. But Josh Jacobs, I think the right move was made by Gutekunst because I think Jacobs has brought just a little extra that Jones just didn't have, and staying on the field because Jones just was getting the injury.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's been a brilliant move.
I think if it is Jones, again, not to take anything away from him because he's a very talented player, but I could see this team maybe being more reliant on the pass if Jones was in this lineup right now.
Yeah, and Jones is a great receiver too, so I think he had that. But Jacobs has shown that you can use him in that passing game just as well. So,
exactly.
I think Jacobs has just brought that. Changed the dimension of the offense to where it was like, oh, Green Bay has all these wide receivers and a running back. Green Bay has this outstanding running back and also complementary wide receivers, and you don't know who's going to gash you, and that's huge when this day and age in the NFL.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so last 4 games that would be Seattle, Detroit, Miami, and San Francisco. Matt Schneidman just posted this. 38 points, 30 points, 31 points, 30 points. Jordan Love, you'd think 4 games is not a lot. 872 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions after 11 interceptions in his first 8 games. Just 3 sacks. Josh Jacobs, 425 total yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 different leading receivers, Dobbs, Kraft, and Watson.
Yeah. That is exactly what you want when you're a head coach in the NFL is just the element of surprise is there because, again, you have so many different weapons that you can use, and you can do it in so many different ways. Defenses do not know. They're on their heels, and if you can keep it from being not one-dimensional, you have a definite chance of moving far in the tournament if you can. You should be able to get in, knock on wood. If the Vikings just clinching the spot, the Packers are sitting right there. But yeah, you are in great position for postseason success.
Exactly. They had a scenario to open up the week. It got close if San Francisco and Rams would have tied. For crying out loud. And then Atlanta would have to lose tonight. But then Green Bay would have got in. But, that tells you one thing. That was already that. You're talking about a clinching scenario, and then they win. Yeah, they win next week. They're in. Is the latest one. So,
and if we see, every team has its weaknesses. You watched that Bills-Detroit game yesterday, and
you'd think at some point Detroit's going to run out of defensive players.
Yeah, you lose 2 starting defensive backs and a defensive lineman, if I'm not mistaken. That's tough. And that's a tough thing because some teams you get healthier as the year goes. Like Detroit's starting to lose guys, but offensively they're still there.
Yeah.
And Bills kept building that lead, and then Jared Goff and that offense just kept finding a way. And the screen game is something I don't feel like we haven't seen since the 90s.
Right.
Like, they are the best screen team I've seen since like those Bill Walsh and George Seifert San Francisco 49ers teams, where they just
Roger Craig all day, man.
Yeah, exactly. Amply, just these different guys that they used to throw out there, and that to me, that's what it looks like with watching that Lions team. It's like they just work the screen. So it's such a part of their running game.
Yep.
But it's and their defense is going to be that's a big thing for all these teams. Even the Packers have given up points too. These offenses, if they get clicking, it's hard to stop any of them. But man, Packers are in good position. Yeah. I really do feel like they're in a good position.
I do too. So, and I thought it was an interesting comment too from Collinsworth last night. Because they were talking about, you look at the top 3 running backs, or even outside the top 3, but all these running backs that have changed teams and they're just dominating right now. I thought you made a really good point. He's like, Kansas City Chiefs did it because everybody's like, we got to play too high safety going up against Kansas City and that. So what are teams doing now? They're running the football. Again, it's just another example of like everything's a cycle.
Yes, exactly.
And when it comes to it, okay, Kansas City's got to do this, so defenses have got to do this. Then the offenses adapt, and then it's going to change. It just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going.
And it's such a copycat league where if something works defensively, teams will go to that right away, and then obviously somebody's going to adapt. That's just that's the nature of the NFL for existence.
Right.
Is just adapt. Because if you don't, you can't run the same offense you were running in 1980.
Right.
That you run now. But you can run variations to catch people off surprise. And I think that's like the Lions with the screen games. Like all of a sudden, that's starting to get something like that coming back. You've seen a lot more double tight end, I think, lately too, as well. Yeah. So
it's like I think I said it last week with the Lions offense. It like annoys me watching them because they just make it look so easy.
No, they really do.
It's just like, stop it. It's so simple, it looks like.
You got to have the right pieces, too.
Exactly.
When you have 2 running backs like they have, that, the amount of yardage they're both putting up together, we haven't seen that in years. And that's fun to watch, though, too. I mean, as much as, Packer fans probably don't want to admit it, but the Lions are a fun team to watch. But we saw them come back down to earth a little bit, but still score. Almost still beat the Bills, which is a team that you could arguably say is the front runner in the AFC to go to the Super Bowl with the Chiefs there. So
especially with Patrick Mahomes now banged up a little bit here too. We'll see how that plays out. So, but it's is it fair to say at this point in time? I know we got 2 games tonight, but with 3 weeks left in the season, you can make the case for maybe a few different teams hoisting Lombardi at the end of the season.
I think so.
I think maybe a little bit. It was like, okay, it's going to be the Lions and Chiefs, but the way Buffalo's playing now, then Philly, you throw in these teams, not to discredit Minnesota either.
Yeah.
The parity there, I think, is there a little bit. I think there's a tier. I don't know about, if the Rams do catch fire here, I don't want to play that offense at this point. So.
And that's the thing, is like, even if you're not on that top tier, we've seen all those teams on that second tier put it together for games and take down some of these top teams.
Yeah. So
I think going into the playoffs, it's going to be, we talked about this it's just going to be wild.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have some really fun matchups because, again, they're good teams. There's great teams, but they all have a little bit of a weakness, and if one of those weaker teams finds a way of putting it all together, I think we're going to have some upsets. I really do.
Yep. You mentioned, just to wrap it up here, too, when you were talking about Matt LaFleur and his, the versatility and willing to adapt in that. I mean, the first person I thought of, too, was Andy Reid. And I'm not comparing Matt LaFleur to Andy Reid by any means, but you look at a guy who's been in the league for a long time, and that's a guy, I think you saw him, guy who could be as old school as he wants to be, but it's like every year he's doing something different offensively. Like with, yes, it helps to have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all that, but to still, have the success he's doing, and how he has adapted over the years offensively too is pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes to just being able to trust your coaches.
Yeah,
and not be like, okay, no, I want to do it this way, and this is the way we've always done it. And I think Bill Belichick was the same way with a lot of that stuff. You know, he had his way of like the way he wanted to lead a team. Mm-hmm. But those teams don't stay successful the way they do by not adapting and having a lot of high-end coaches that came through there and help him get to that. And I think Andy Reid's the same way. It's like he trusts his coaches doing different wrinkles, and it's worked. And I think Matt LaFleur's been the same way.
Yep.
Like he's really like Adam Stanovich has done a great job stepping in there and on the offensive side. You know, Butkus has got that offensive line humming as well, and they work so well with just finding a way to use the personnel they have and really adapt and making it to the point where it's such the riches they have on that offense and the different things that they can throw out there. It just for defenses, it just like I said, they're always back on their heels because they don't know where you can gash them at.
Exactly. All right, a big thanks to Justus Cleveland for joining us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll wrap up this episode with some final thoughts on the Packers' victory over the Seahawks, plus my I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. That's coming up after these quick words. Are you hosting family and friends for the holiday season this year? Hey, that can be pretty stressful trying to figure out what to prepare, who likes what to eat, and so on. Well, you can take some of that stress off your plate by simply visiting Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Whether you will be tackling the cooking yourself or you need some help with preparing meals this holiday season, Hy-Vee can help you out in so many different ways. Whether you want to shop and save some money or you need help with some catering, Hy-Vee in Eau Claire has you covered. So stop on in and get started for your holiday preparations today. It is time for my I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. This week, I'm not saying that Edgerrin Cooper is going to be the next Hall of Fame linebacker for the Green Bay Packers, but I'm just saying this dude's future is incredibly bright. So let me explain here a little bit. Edgerrin Cooper last night led the team in tackles, also got a sack, got a pick, had himself a night last night. Dude was balling in his return. There's no question about it. Edgerrin Cooper easily gets a tip of the cap. Easy tip of the cap pick for the performance that he had last night. I give my tip of the cap also to Jeff Hafley for the defensive game plan that they had out there. Offensively, they started off the game masterful. If this Packers team can continue to have success running the football and can continue to eat clock, eat that time, and come away with touchdowns like they did in that first quarter, this is a team that can go on the road and win some playoff games. If they can go out there and have success running the football and Josh Jacobs continues to do what he is doing, and Green Bay is going to go and have 7-minute drives, 6, 7, 8-minute drives that are going to end in touchdowns. This is a team that can go on the road and win. Yes, it would be nice to have a home game, have a home playoff game coming up here, but with the style that Green Bay is playing on offense, that is a style that can go on the road and win, whether it's going to be in Tampa, whether it's back at however it's going to play out. And it's a style that they have to play if they're going to go up against teams maybe like the Rams or these teams that like to score quick because they've got these big play offenses and such. And the Rams can get into a little bit of a similar type of game plan for the Packers if they want to. I mean, they did against the 49ers. What was that 16-play drive that they had that took 9 minutes off and only came away with 3 points, though? But this is a recipe where they can go into the postseason and maybe win a couple games with what they're doing right now. They're playing, I think, some solid complementary football in terms of what they're doing on offense plays into what they're doing on defense and vice versa. You'd love to see Jair Alexander back in the fray because the one thing that does concern me about the defense going forward and into the postseason, it's still going to be the secondary. And, if you go up against a team like the Rams or even Mike Evans and the Buccaneers or those type of teams, they did a good job last night against DK and Jackson and Lockett and such. But if they're banged up in the secondary with Javon Bullard and especially Jair Alexander, and you have that trickle-down effect, it does worry me a little bit because then you're moving guys around. You know, Keyshawn's moving back to the slot, where I think he was actually better this year as an outside corner. So if you have all these different moving parts in the secondary, if Jair is, I don't know what the plan's going to be. I know, Matt LaFleur said Friday that didn't look like he was ready to go, so they shut him down. I don't know if that means they're going to try it again this week, or is they going to shut him down for a little bit longer, or what the plan's going to be. I guess we'll find out on Wednesday and such when they get back to practice, or maybe it's Thursday. I don't know what their schedule is going to be like with the Monday night game. But I think you have to ask the question now is, if Jair's kind of teetering around, he can play. It's just, do you shut him down for the rest of the regular season and hope to get him back in the playoffs? I mean, yes, of course, I would love to see him going up against Minnesota and going up against Justin Jefferson and such. No question. I want to see that. But is it smart at this point to just say, okay, Jair, we're going to get you ready for the postseason. We need you in the postseason. We need you going up against the Rams if we got to play the Rams. We need you going up against Mike Evans if we got to play the Buccaneers. We need you going up against maybe Seattle again against DK or whatever. I don't know exactly where it's at this stage. I think we all thought he was going to play this week after he was a full participant on Wednesday and Thursday. Sure looked like it was trending in that direction, especially the week prior. He was back at practice and doing some things. Or does he need to get into a game before the playoffs start to knock off a little bit of that rust and such? But I really believe they still need a guy like Jair back in the secondary once the postseason starts, especially if they're going up against these offenses that feature some big-time wide receivers. But Edgerrin Cooper last night, though, proved, I think, that he's a big part of this defense, too, and what this defense could do. And I think that's one thing that maybe, and I'm guilty of this. I am 100% guilty of this. And I think a lot of us are at the same point where we went into this year with higher expectations for this defense, with a new defensive coordinator coming in, switching over to a 4-3, different philosophy, different style. So we had some really high expectations right away. So did I. And maybe we should have been just a little bit more lenient because, one, you're switching things up, right? You're asking guys like Rashawn Gary or Van Ness and those guys who are rushing from standing up position, okay, put your hand in the dirt. You're asking Kenny Clark to do some things differently. Maybe we should have been a little bit more lenient at the beginning of the year. Maybe we should have lowered the expectations a little bit. But also factoring in these younger guys, you're asking Devin Williams and Javon Bullard and Edgerrin Cooper to be bigger-time players within this defense and such. And we saw Evan Williams making an impact right away at the beginning of the year. So, we were talking about, gosh, this defense, we need Evan Williams in there for this defense to be successful. Then it was Jair. We need Jair in there to be successful. And it's all true. It's 100% right. But Edgerrin Cooper has now, I think, put his name in that thing where it's like, okay, we need Edgerrin Cooper in there. Because if Edgerrin Cooper's in there and he's doing what he did last night, you add in all that other stuff. Boy, now we're starting to maybe see what we had envisioned with this defense all offseason and all season long. If everybody's healthy, you got your shutdown corner. You've got your turnover machine and Xavier McKinney. You've got your linebacker, your inside linebacker who can get after the quarterback, who can play a little coverage, who's maybe your best pure tackling linebacker, a physical linebacker in Edgerrin Cooper. You're seeing actually Van Ness and Rashawn Gary getting more success. You're seeing edge rushers getting a little bit more success. Maybe it's all, as the great Lou Brown from the Cinematic Classic Major League once said, things are starting to come together, Pepper. Things are starting to come together. Maybe that's the case. I don't want to overreact to just one game from last night. But I don't think it's an overreaction to say that what we saw from like Edgerrin Cooper and what we saw from the pass rush last night That's what we've been waiting for. And yes, Seattle's offensive line stinks. They suck. And they were banged up. But the thing is, Green Bay took advantage of it and they exposed it. That's what you want to see. That's what we expected to see, and they did it. And with a backup quarterback coming in here, they dialed it up a little bit more. They dialed up that aggressiveness a little bit more. They didn't allow a backup quarterback to go in there and kind of like light a spark. How many times have we seen that before? I mean, Sam Howell just looked like lost. He looked lost. I mean, all those, especially after that interception, I mean, just the facial. I don't even know if the guy was there. He was just gone. And that's a credit to Jeff Hafley. That's a credit to the players. It's a credit to that defensive coaching staff because they did exactly what they were supposed to do with no Jair in that lineup. They went after Geno or Howell quickly. They didn't. Yes, there was definitely some open plays across the middle of the field. Definitely there was some miscommunication in the zone defense. You know, Devin Williams earlier in the game. You know, DK Metcalf was drawing a lot of attention in terms of double teams and such. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't 100% perfect. There's definitely stuff to clean up. There's definitely communication stuff to get going here. But when we all found out that Jair was not playing in this game, I think we all said, okay, pass rush. Okay, Rashawn. Okay, Kenny. Okay, guys. It's on you. You got to get home. You got to disrupt him. You got to make him nervous back there. And I thought they did a good job of it. They did a really good job of it. 7 sacks. 6 different players registering a sack. Of the quarterback hits, 9 different players had quarterback. Of the 12 quarterback hits, it was coming in different ways. You had Devontae Wyatt showing off a spin move. You had guys displaying power. That E word, that effort word. Effort. Jeff Hafley preaches effort. If you don't show effort, you're not playing. I think you saw effort last night from a lot of those guys, especially a guy like Edgerrin Cooper. I mean, that guy. Again, I know it's like the Edgerrin Cooper appreciation show this morning, and it's just like a love affair. But how many times has us Packers fans said, man, I wish we had a linebacker like a Fred Warner. Man, I wish we had that inside linebacker that, you know, you can bring on a blitz, or he's like everywhere. I'm not saying Edgerrin Cooper is going to be the next Fred Warner or the next great top middle linebacker, inside linebacker in the NFL, but he gave us glimpses of what that could look like. I think he's going to be a solid player, a really good player for the next few years. He's got the athletic traits. He's got the instincts. He's got the aggressiveness. He's got the effort. And I just hope now you continue to stack that. You continue to build upon that. Edgerrin Cooper continues to build upon that. Coaches continue to build upon that, putting him in a position to affect games, to succeed. We saw some glimpses of that, what type of player he can be within this defense. We saw it. We saw that he can be kind of a Swiss Army knife type of player that can do multiple things for you. He can confuse a quarterback dropping in the zone. He can come after you. He can come after the ball carrier. This defense is better with 56 out there. This defense is better with Edgerrin Cooper out there. It's not better when he's on the sideline or splitting reps with the other guys. He is better when he is that, or this defense is better when he is out there. He's a game changer. He's a game wrecker at this point. And I just saw this. Talking about the coverage aspect of it. Quarterback rating when targeting Edgerrin Cooper last night, 0. Not 0.5, not 0.2, not 0.1, 0. This is the middle linebacker, the inside linebacker type of play that we have wanted to see for a long time. Quay Walker has shown us glimpses of that. His biggest thing has been the consistency part of it. Edgerrin Cooper, still fairly young. but he's maybe shown us some more, maybe he's shown us a little bit of a higher ceiling at that point. This was from Matt Schneidman after the game last night. Kingsley Enagbare on Edgerrin Cooper. He's special, man. Definitely, I feel like he's a future Hall of Famer. From the stat line, you can see he can do everything. Make tackles, make the interceptions, get the sacks. There's literally nothing he's physically not able to do. And I think we saw that last night. The biggest thing now is just going to be, okay, let's build upon that. Let's stack that success. But let's make sure Edgerrin Cooper is on that field as many times as possible, too, because this defense is mounds and mounds better with 56 out there. All right, that is going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. As a reminder, please don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Man Cave Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. And if you do listen on like Apple and Spotify, if you could give us a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast, that would be awesome. And don't forget to drop us a line on the bat line. That number is in the podcast description, along with the link to the Residence Branding Company, Swag Cave. Till next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.